These shootings are not just a one-off. They are a part of training. That's part of why they don't want the shooting range to be public, because they want to go in there and train how to blow someone away.
A couple of years, things may change when all the kids grow up and start wearing ties and going to the polls.
You ever have that feeling where you're not sure if you're awake or still dreaming?
Any member of the police department who has allowed himself to get out of condition will either get back into condition or be weeded out.
You know, every time I start one of these, I think, man, I've got to make sure to note this, and I've got to talk about that, and I've got to insert this. I don't need to. Their words speak for themselves, and look at this. More people are starting to come out. It's not just one guy at the meeting anymore, guys. This is going to get fun soon.
Officers had to use their de-escalation training.
Another word out of here, you're going to be in handcuffs, going to jail. Not another word.
Practice and training are critical, and I mandate it, period.
I find it incredibly offensive that this chief would come in here and talk about a crime that happened 2 states away, but he won't address any of the situations that I presented to this board or this chief that have happened right here in Lawrence, Kansas. And he won't even look me in the eyes anymore. Won't talk to me, won't look me in the eyes. Let's address some situations that have happened here. We've seen officers use excessive force here, and this board has remained silent. We've seen officers use excessive force here, and the police have remained silent while they change policies and cover things up to hide it. We don't release public records the way we're supposed to, so we can't find out any information about it. And you guys spent all this time talking about Jalen Walker, but you guys have not made a single second to talk about Adil Kassim or the individual who was on Mass Street, I believe his name was Felix, that had Daubert's knees put in his back. How about we have those discussions here? But we can't even talk about those here, but you're going to express sympathy for a guy that happened 2 states away. I think that's a cop-out, and it's a way to avoid talking about local issues, because he can come in here and openly and freely talk about Jalen Walker, but we can't openly and freely talk about the citizens of Lawrence. What is wrong with that, guys? Seriously, I'm going to keep my cool tonight and respect the board, but I do not respect any of these men here tonight.
Yeah. Jeremy Rothkushel, Lawrence, Kansas, the radical middle of America. I was actually going to reference information that I'd been attuned to by Mr. Stephen Watts, which is I believe it's called Lexapro, which is a cut and paste policy handbook that's used around the country by police departments, including, it looks like, for statewide policy in California. And it looks like it works to create policy that basically plays right up against the line of the law in terms of the definition of imminent threat. And what imminent might mean. And so my concern is that if we're using these same kind of handbooks here in Lawrence, that we are setting up a situation where, for reasons of wanting to get away legally after some kind of incident that has been referenced, that we are going to actually escalate the policy that ends up in that kind of situation and then it being justified. So I just wanted to comment on that matter. Thank you.
Mr. Lockhart was talking about, the policy. Right. Exactly. I agree. Policy. But the policy for Lawrence is written out of Lawrence. It's written by a right-wing think tank, Lexi Poll, not pro, Lexi Poll. I've talked to the board about this repeatedly. It gives police the same powers that the Stasi had in East Germany. It's incredible. And we just let it happen. I understand that it's not easy, but at the same time, I'm in a room with a virtual room with people making $100,000 a year, and they want to climb. It's just incredible, Ms. Robinson. It's incredible. That man, he was the training that occurs in our community for the police. It doesn't have anything to do with education or training. It has to do with an overall attitude. And these people who sign up nowadays, they want to be G.I. Joe. Send them off to Fallujah if they want to go shoot people and be shot at. That isn't happening here in Lawrence. Why do we underscore the utilization of warrior training for police in hillbilly Hicksville, Lawrence, Kansas?
Another word out of here, you're going to be in handcuffs, going to jail. Not another word.
Doing threats in order to get compliance is a little questionable. I wanted to know, And I still want to know what came of that. Is that the way our police department works? That guys can say, well, I'm going to arrest you for A, B, and C when A, B, and C isn't a problem. How can you trust these guys? This is Lawrence, Kansas. It is not the streets of Fallujah. This review board is a waste of time until you get energized and say, we want to work with the police. The police need our help. Let's cut their budget. I have no clue after more than 3 years of this stuff, 3 years for me and then some, what each of you stand for. I don't know what you stand for. I know what I stand for. I want a strong Citizens Police Review Board that does everything. I mean, writes the policy, does the supervision, takes the complaints, everything. We tell the police what to do. They don't tell us what to do. Where did all of the authority go? You've been neutered. And was her name Gordon? I can't remember the name. She resigned, despite having participated in turning this into an academic exercise. These are not easy times for anybody, including Lockhart and Heffley. They got tough jobs, and I understand that. And you know what? I might believe in them. We're in a town that let the police union run a black chief of police out of town, and we still don't know what the hell for. And we're never going to know. Why not? So Heffley and Lockhart got to deal with these guys. I understand, the walking that line, but we need to please flex your muscle for a while. Let's get something accomplished here. Don't let Marie Garten, whatever her name is, the town lawyer, Tony Wheeler and Marie Gonzalez and Marie Taylor. I had a conversation with you, Marie, and you told me that, you wanted to see this racially biased focus. Okay, well, now we focused on nothing. Thank you.
I'm inclined to agree with Mr. Watts that in all of my observation, I have seen no purpose that this review board serves. It just to the out from the outside looking in, it appears to be a whole lot more of we have investigated ourselves and found ourselves clear of all wrongdoing.
Stephen, her name was Jane Gibson, and Chief Lockhart is the reason she resigned. I'm pretty sure it was after that little Ford Chrysler conversation that was really kind of interesting. We had a heavy patrol running through my neighborhood all of a sudden. I felt like it was intimidation, so I called it out. Tried to find out who the officer was so that I could make a complaint in B1. Nobody wanted to tell me who that officer was. Bill Corey came out and said that unless I had an actual interaction with that officer, I have no right to find out his name. So we require actual interactions to find out somebody's name. Now, how in the hell is somebody supposed to submit a third-party complaint about something they witnessed looking out their window on a police officer if we can't do it and we can't find out names unless we had an actual interaction with them? Now, I'm going to tell you how that's difficult and the reason why this comes into play. Because I submitted an open record request, and I think this board needs to remember that you guys operate under the Kansas Open Records Act, and you are not allowed to have any more information than I should be allowed to have from the police department if that is true. But I don't think that's true because I'm being blocked in an interesting way. I submitted a request to the Lawrence Police Department requesting a document, I think I might have set a record, sufficient to identify the individual police officer driving Unit B1 during a specific time in a specific neighborhood at a specific date. What I got back was an indication from Kim Murphy, the head of records, and you guys are going to love this. There is no responsive record. Now, what that would mean is that she's trying to tell us that the police department does not follow the policies as far as it goes, or the actual laws as far as it goes to keeping records for what officers are doing. So they're saying that there's no responsive record to what officer is driving a car. I'm asking, how in the hell is that possible? So we don't inspect our vehicles when we start our shift. We don't write down mileage. We don't sign a form that says we've taken control of this car for a period of time. Do we not do any of that stuff, Chief? It doesn't sound like it because apparently there's no responsive record, guys. Now you operate under this core policy. How are you supposed to get records if this is the way they treat it? Now, I found out who was in B3. That's our good buddy, Charlie Stewart. And there's a reason they don't want to know. They don't want me to know that it's Charlie Stewart. Because he's one of the officers that would have a motivation to start cruising my neighborhood because he doesn't like the fact I caught him muting a body cam talking about an investigation when they unjustly pulled somebody off their porch, threw him to the ground, and later made him plead guilty to the charges of interfering. And you guys want $2.5 million. 2.5 more. Well, we got to close down stuff. That's a greedy mindset. You can't go to shooters and shoot, can you? Do they not like you there? Do you not feel comfortable there? How come you can't go to shooters and shoot your guns off?
Michael, would you be able to finish in the next 30 seconds or so?
Oh, I sure can. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
But the last thing I want to say is I can't wait for the day when we catch you guys popping off rounds like what we see on TV. Because you know it's coming.
Board, I submitted public comment today in written form with a bunch of links that substantiate and found the fact that we do have a contract with the Israeli security state founded BriefCam, video biometrics analytics. It was submitted and signed off on in 2019. And then there's a line item for it in 2020. It looks to be a 3-year contract, which very likely means that it's coming up for a recontracting next year. So we need to talk about this now in terms of the specific case. Now, I would remind the board in terms of the targeting and the killing of Black men, that this foreign security state, Israel, has been well recognized at this point to be an apartheid government, ethno-religiously biased. I, as a Jewish American patriot of conscience who's involved in First Amendment protected activities around these kinds of very serious security and controversial matters, feel very threatened by the fact that our police department has brought in the security contracting of this foreign military intelligence state that has a history very recently of targeting and assassinating Palestinian American journalists such as Shireen Abu Akleh. They were also Israeli cyber weapons were supplied to the bone saw mafia in Saudi Arabia that was then used to target for a hack job of Washington Post journalist Khashoggi. And by the way, the morally, and I'll just remind that my 3 points are we have to deal with biometrics more generally as a society. We need to remember that our form of government here in the United States of America is we the people. We are the ones who founded the government. We're the source of the power of any legitimate state power. And we have to have an oversight into our government, not the other way around. This biometric issue is going to come up more and more in terms of equity, in terms of privacy. Black women are the ones who are most unequally treated by a biometric technology. This state, Israel, was actually in league with the apartheid state of South Africa when it was running its white supremacist policy. Now, this is a what we would call a shonda in Jewish circles in terms of a shame upon this board that it's in line, in bed with this Israeli apartheid state that has shown itself to be a racist state, to willing to be in bed in developing nuclear weapons, ethno-specific bioweapons with the South African government, and now on up to this current moment where it's recognized by the best of our U.S. counterintelligence and security services as a top eternal threat in counterintelligence and security alongside such nemesis as China and Russia. Imagine if we were running Russian intelligence software in our databases. We don't even know the basics in terms of once we give our video data over to BriefCam, what do they have, or what servers are those on, what's going on? So I will take up Major Cooper's invitation to visit the police center and ask more questions about this. But the fact of this matter is well established. There's no more plausible deniability. Now we have to deal with the actual facts and implications of this. Thank you very much.
Stephen brought up a good point last month. Ms. Bickford pointed out the fact that and got Chief into a conversation where he decided to admit to some borderline USC violations, which I believe really do have some bearing on the conversation about police accountability around here. Because I think what we proved was that if it doesn't exist in the policy, they are going to exonerate the officer, regardless of the federal implications. And that can't happen. It can't. Because every time it does, they go further down the civil path. They get into further civil trouble, and they're going to get themselves in a lawsuit eventually. It's unfortunate that I don't have the standing to actually file that case because I didn't let you assholes actually violate my rights. I stood up for myself. There's too many people out there that won't stand up for themselves, and you're going to violate their rights. And part of what I do as Lawrence Accountability on YouTube, I'm going to go ahead and plug myself. I'm going to use these public meetings to start building my subscriber base. Lawrence Accountability on YouTube. I'm here to show the other side of the police department that you don't see, that they don't want to talk about. And I've shown quite a bit that you guys don't want to talk about, apparently. I think that last month's discussion regarding that threat really needs to be resolved. I said in that meeting that I was the complainant. I was here. Chief refused to freely and openly discuss that, but you're going to come in here and freely, openly and discuss Jalen Walker. That's pretty sad, man. We can't openly and freely discuss a complaint when the complainant's in the room, but you're going to talk about Jalen Walker like you really care.
Jeremy Rothkushel, Lawrence, Kansas, Radical Middle of America. I just want to make a quick comment that I concur very much with there's a cultural problem here that is way bigger than just the police department. One example, I think, is what Mr. Watts talked about more generally, where one of our city managers, we sort of have a series of these city managers who pass through and make what seem to be small changes, such as destroying the written record of the actual commentary during these kinds of meetings, and then move on. And this is very, very important, reminding us again of our form of government. The public reasoning and the public knowledge is the most important thing in relationship to legitimate public governance on through the police department, through the city, and all of that. So I imagine this is more of an issue for the city commission. Then secondly, in terms of issues of culture, what Michael has pointed out about what goes on behind the scenes in terms of the nature of the commentary, very tongue-in-cheek, it's sort of very middle school-esque in a way. It doesn't seem to take the members of the public seriously. And so this is a much bigger issue than obviously just individual members onto the command staff and leadership of this department. We're seeing this nationwide. These are very big structural components, some of them cultural. I would point out one example of the thin blue line, a desecration of the flag. It's also, I would say, it's seditious in intent in relationship to the founding nature of our government. It puts a blue line, basically, is that between the people and the government? Is that between chaos and order? That's a total seditious concept in relationship to we the people. We're all here together. This is our country, this is our city, this is our government, this is our police department. You need we the people to be respected and to also respect you, the public servants. So include us in your reasoning, respect our ability to understand what's going on. We may understand certain backgrounds, such as I have a deep lay expertise in relationship to the threat of Israeli intelligence. It's said to be an ally, but they've even attempted to assassinate Jewish American ambassadors who are trying to make peace in the region. They've run serious compromise programs at the highest levels of our government. And so I just wanted to urge a public reckoning and a reasoning with the issue of what is our real American civic culture and how it's been threatened more and more, especially after September 11th, where we've seen escalations of shootings based on a large array of reasons. Some of them, the militarization of police, the foreign training in Israel, but also at core, the escalation of a culture of disrespect of we the people.
Really, Kevin, why'd you pull out that parking lot?
My name's Jason. I've been watching these meetings and observing, listening for quite some time. And today's the first day I've decided to come up here, and I find it a little disturbing that I'm staring at 3 police officers and no civilians. I mean, How is that supposed to look to me, to someone who, what if someone it took them a long time to work up the courage down here because maybe they had a bad encounter with a law enforcement officer and they come down here and that's all they see is law enforcement officers.
Receiving a monthly complaint report from Chief Lockhart.
Thank you, Chair Robinson. I'm happy to report this month that we didn't have any complaints that were disposed of in the month of June.
I can't hide.